Any big Bible words or like big theology words? We're going to learn some. I'm going to test you guys. What? She heard it earlier. What's up? Messiah, that's a big one. That's an important one. What does Messiah mean, Gabriel? Yeah, Jesus or Savior, right? Yeah. All right. What's our first word, Amy? Theophany. Who knows what a theophany is? Paul knew earlier. I was really impressed. If you don't know, it's fine. Anyone know what a theophany is? No, don't look it up. So a theophany is a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. That's what it is. So like before the New Testament, God showed up a few times. Theophany says that that's Jesus, like when it says the angel of the Lord that accepts worship from people, unlike any other angel. I think it's Jesus as a theophany, right? That's a big Bible word. What's our next one? Transubstantiation. Everyone say that 3 times fast. Transubstantiation, transubstantiation. What's transubstantiation? Anyone ever go to like a Catholic or a Lutheran church? Been there? So Catholic and the Lutheran churches, they typically believe that when you take communion, it actually becomes the blood and the body of Jesus. Right? Interesting. That's what transubstantiation means. It's a super long word for that concept. What's next? Augustinianism. That's a hard one. I stumble over that one. Augustinianism. Who knows what that is? Are you looking it up? Yeah, she is. Ready? I wrote this one down. It's the view that the nature of humankind since the fall, all human beings are corrupted by sin, and this corrupted nature controls the human will and inclines it towards evil so that no person has ever or will ever take the first step towards a right relationship with God. Big word, big definition. It means that sin affects all of us, right? Even before we sin, it's still affecting us. All right, what's next? Cessationism. Anyone? So I come from a super conservative church when it comes to a lot of theology. Cessationism is the idea that spiritual gifts stopped shortly after Jesus died. Interesting. I think it's wrong, but it's a word. It's the big theology word, right? So like healings, miracles, things like that. Says they stopped shortly after Jesus died. They went on for a while and then they were done. That's what that means. What's next? Apologetics. Who's heard this word before? Anyone ever heard this word talked about in church or anywhere else? What's apologetics? What do you guys think? You can look it up if you want. What do you guys think it might mean? Yeah, Brian. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it could mean apology. What it really means, apologetics, is making a case for, right? So like apologetic is making the case for God, for example, or making the case that Jesus was who he said he was, making the case for. What's our next word? This one we talk about all the time. What does the word theology mean? Yep, because, more specifically, God, right? Because ology means, like we've all been in science class. I haven't been in science class for a while, but we've all been in science class at one point. And ology means the study of, and theos is Latin for God, right? So theology is just the study of God. So all these words, I went to Bible college. I still had to look up some of these. But all these big words, and sometimes we hear people use them, sometimes we read them, sometimes we're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, just shut up right now. But like, sometimes people use these big words, and we have no idea what they mean, especially in church. But when we're talking about big words, our new theme for this month, theology and faith doesn't have to be that complicated. Like, do I have to pull out a dictionary every time I try to teach someone about Jesus? Like, oh yeah, here's exactly what that word means. Do we have to always do that? No, sometimes we do, and maybe we shouldn't. I know some preachers who use Greek in like every sermon, because the New Testament was written in like a type of Greek that's dead called Koine Greek. And they use that in every single sermon. And I'm like, what? It's boring. Anyway, it is, but it's important. It's good to know, but you like don't have to know that to have faith, right? So theology. My question today is, how do we know that God exists? The Bible. The Bible tells us a lot about God and that he exists. But outside of the Bible, what are some proofs? What are some ideas? What are some thoughts on how we know that God exists? The earth? What about the earth? That it's here? That's a good one. Right? It's a big question because when you're talking to someone about Jesus and they're like, I don't believe in any of that, I believe in science, what's your answer? Like, they're not going to accept the answer, the Bible, as like why God exists, right? Have you ever tried to have that conversation? How does it go? It doesn't go well because they're like, I don't even believe in the Bible. Like, that's not true. Why would I do that? So what are some cases, what are some ideas, what are some apologetics, what's some theology even that we can use outside of the Bible to prove that God is real? That's what we're going to talk about today. Can we do that together? So there's a couple different things, because some people really believe that science disproves the existence of God. You have friends like that? They're like, I don't want to follow that. Really, it's just rebellion, but they really say that science disproves the existence of God. But what if I told you that science, math, and philosophy do a lot to prove the existence of God? Because they really do. There's two arguments I want to talk about today. One is called the cosmological argument. Who knows what cosmological means? Yeah, heaven, space, all that. So it says this. It says if the universe had a beginning, then the universe had a cause. Like something caused that beginning. So if science is a search for what caused things, and we know that the universe had a beginning, where did that beginning come from? Where did that beginning come from? Turn up.
Expansion started. Wait, began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool. Neanderthals developed tools, we built a wall. We built the pyramids. Math, science, history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a big bang. Hey!
Sorry, I like that show. Any excuse I get to use theme songs. I'm not actually sorry. So scientists believe that the Big Bang started everything that we know. Did you know until the early 1900s, scientists really believed that the universe always existed pretty much as we see it today? They're like, oh, it's always been there. But then a really smart math guy, how many of you guys are in like algebra or like past algebra 2? I have a story to tell you. I'm not good at math. I almost failed algebra 2. But a lot of people are a lot better at math than I am, I promise. And like, who's the smartest mathematician you can think of? Albert Einstein. You want to go there? No, okay. Albert Einstein, right? So Einstein was doing math one day, and he was like, I'm going to prove that the universe has always existed. Yeah. I don't know. But he said, I'm going to prove that the universe has always existed. And so he tries to. Like, math I can't even begin to wrap my head around. And it comes down to it, and the math that he finds, and math isn't all about like feelings or emotions. Math is either true or it's not, right? Like there's no really middle gray ground. His equation comes out that the universe had a beginning and is constantly moving outward and losing energy. That's what he saw. But he didn't want to believe that. And so Albert Einstein, like if you think someone's smart or like sarcastically you're making fun of them, you call them like Einstein, right? Because he was just a genius. Albert Einstein does something even a first grader knows not to do. He divides by 0. Now what happens? I know, I'm not good at math. I don't fully understand that joke, but it's true, he did it. Right, Jacob? Okay. But he divides by 0. Now, if you're like sitting there doing algebra homework and you divide by 0 and you hand that in, what's going to happen? You're going to get a 0, right? Your teacher's going to be like, go back to first grade or something, right? I don't know. My teacher said that to me. Not good at math, right? So, but Albert Einstein divides by 0. It takes about 10 years, because Albert Einstein's really smart, for other scientists to prove him wrong. But it's true. Our universe, according to science, according to math, had a beginning, is constantly moving in an outward motion, and constantly losing energy. Unlike scientists used to believe. And what do scientists say that the Big Bang looked like? What do you guys think? Like it's big, and it went bang, right? Let's go to our next photo. So here's clearly we weren't there, but here's a photo I found of here's maybe what the Big Bang looked like. You got particles everywhere. What's eventually going to be planet Earth, according to scientists, is here somewhere. Exactly right here. Just kidding, I don't know. But what do you notice about this photo? Yeah, everything's exploding, everything's moving out in an outward pace. No, really, what do you guys see? Power? Color? Yeah. They didn't even have color photos back then. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like something like bright white is coming out. Holy's a good word, right? So in reality, because the question always, we argue all day about, did the Big Bang happen, 1? And 2, if the Big Bang happened, where did the material come from? Because they say, matter was so compressed that eventually it just exploded, right? So if it happened, it still needs a cause. I like the description of the middle of this photo being just a bright white light, because when you add energy and heat together, what do they make? Look above you. What do they make? Light, right? And I love in Genesis chapter 1, and this isn't even our strongest argument today, I promise, but I love in Genesis chapter 1 where it says this: in the beginning, God existed, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering on the water. So God was there, right? And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, right? God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and called the darkness, he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. If it took light and energy for our universe to come into existence, as science has proved, I think God is the cause of that. There was a cause. I believe it was God. Our next argument is even stronger. It's called the teleological argument. Someone say that out loud. Teleological. It's really hard, right? But the teleological says this: every design has a designer. If you're a girl and you want to go buy a Gucci purse, it doesn't just appear out of nowhere, right? Right? If you want an Xbox, you don't just go down to the rock quarry and hope you find one, right? That's not how that works. Unless someone got really mad playing Fortnite. Yes. But still, not typically how that works. But our universe has a highly complex design. Therefore, our universe has a designer. Who wanted to be an astronaut when they grew up? None of the middle schoolers said yes. It was awkward. I think they were born after the space race or something, which I was too, but it was still, the space era was still going on when I was 5, right? We were still sending people into space. I know, space era is 60s. But we were still sending people into space when I was a kid, and I thought that would be the coolest thing, to be an astronaut. I thought it'd be awesome. But I wanted to be an astronaut, but I knew one thing, when I grew up, I knew one thing would always disqualify me from being an astronaut. Do you know, they put you in a chamber in a little pod, and they spin you in a circle as fast as they can? Have you seen that in movies? Yes. I have a story to tell you. Can I tell you a vomit story today? I won't get super in-depth. So I was going to a fair, and I had a large plate of spaghetti, or 2. I don't know. Self-control is hard. So I had lots of spaghetti. I was like 12. And I get on the swings. Did you guys go to the Pima County Fair? Anyone? Well, they had the swings there that, like, they start on the ground, but you spin and they go, like, 50 feet in the air, like the normal swings. These weren't those. These were, like, you know, like the little kids section of the fair where they're like, oh, get in the swing. We'll spin you at, like, 5 miles an hour or less. And then you'll get off and you'll be fine and you'll go about your day. Well, I get on this swing, and they spin me 5 miles an hour for about 30 seconds. And I'm already getting queasy. And telling this story, I'm getting really queasy. And the end. We know how the story ends, right? So I knew after that moment, I'm never going to be an astronaut. And then they canceled the whole program, which is sad. But imagine you're an astronaut, okay? Imagine you've been to, like, space school or whatever they call it, astronaut school. Imagine you've had all the training. And imagine you're in your spacesuit and you're strapped in to this giant rocket, okay? So you're like this, because you're just looking up at the sky. And as you're taking off, one tiny thing goes wrong. What's going to happen?
You die.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, 13 actually came back after catastrophic failure. They, like, lost their atmosphere and stuff. But, like, in 2003 was the last time it happened. They were setting up a spaceship, and, like, a tiny little piece of foam flew off somewhere and hit something else, and then all of a sudden, there was no more spaceship. Like, imagine how terrifying it is to be an astronaut. Like, it's scary. Just kidding. Like, yeah, like Code Red, right? It's terrifying to be an astronaut. But in reality, we are kind of all astronauts. You see, I've been mostly all over the United States. I've been to, like, Rocky Point, but I've never been like actual flying in a plane overseas somewhere. But we live on this giant spaceship that's hurtling through space at how many miles per hour? A lot. It's very fast. And it spins very fast, and I need to stop thinking about how fast the Earth is spinning or else I'm going to throw up. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Stop thinking about things moving fast. I'm not kidding. I feel real sick. Okay. But think about this. If one small thing on our spaceship goes wrong, what happens? Here's a few of those things that could go wrong. So oxygen makes up 21% of our atmosphere. It's constantly at that, even though it's constantly being used and replenished. It's always about 21% of our atmosphere. If oxygen were at 25% of our atmosphere, guess what would happen? Things would randomly start catching on fire. Isn't that great? Until you're the thing that randomly catches on fire. Bad idea. It happens. But if oxygen were just 6% lower in our entire atmosphere, what would happen? We would suffocate. It'd be really bad. Same with carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is at a constant, even though it's being constantly used and remade. If there were more carbon dioxide, which is a huge thing, like scientists are worried about, if there were more carbon dioxide, what happens? Global warming, greenhouse gases, like the greenhouse effect. Have you guys ever been in a greenhouse? What happens if that happens? We all die, right? But if there were less carbon dioxide, we would still die. Why? What uses carbon dioxide? Plants. What do plants create out of carbon dioxide? Oxygen. We need it, right? If our atmosphere were less transparent, if it were just a little more cloudy up there, we would freeze to death. Like, not enough sun radiation would get through. We would freeze to death. Like, life wouldn't be possible. If it were a little more transparent, we would be bombarded by radiation. If the force of gravity were altered just... Okay, can you help me out here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A tiny, tiny amount, then our sun would not exist. If gravity were altered just a little bit, Our sun would not exist. So there are 122 constants. Think about this. There are 122 things that must exist to support life as we know it. 122 of them have to be just right. Life as we know it. Life could exist somewhere else in the universe. We haven't found it yet. But at least life as we know it needs 122 things to be exactly right. What are the odds of that happening by itself? Amy, what are the odds of that happening by itself? You want to know how many zeros there are there? Too much. So let me explain this number a bit. Let's say the Kentucky Derby was yesterday, right? And you can, in some places, you can bet on the Kentucky Derby, right? So there's like a 1 in 5 chance this horse is going to win, or there's a 1 in 14 chance this horse is going to win, and you get more. Anyway, that part doesn't matter. There's like a 1 in 14 chance this horse is going to win. There is a 1 in 1 to the 130th power chance that everything we need for life would happen naturally. So at what point do you consider this to be improbable that it would happen? Is it here, like 1 in 1,000 chance? Like, when would this start being like improbable, like it would never happen? Is it like here? Or like here? Like 1 in 1 to the 20th power? It's not very likely. And that's just not for the Earth. That's for any planet to support life as we know it. It's a big number. It couldn't happen. Romans 1:20 says this, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse." I just think of Tucson. Like, I'm an exterminator, so I'm out in the desert a lot. And so, have you guys ever seen a tarantula hawk? Yeah. Like, it's a wasp this big. Like, those things exist because tarantulas exist. Like, our ecosystem and our world are so finely tuned. So there are things that science can't prove. And there are things that, because science can't prove them, scientists have theories, scientists have ideas, but ultimately, what would you call those theories and ideas that they believe in? What's another word? It's more of a churchy word, so we might not think of it in this way. Scientists, in order to believe in some of the things they believe, like, where did the world come from? Where did the universe spawn from? Why is this a thing? Like, why does this exist? Why is everything perfect here? It comes down to faith. And whether we talk about evolution or whatever else, their theories still come down to, we believe this is still the best option. It takes faith to be a scientist. And there's even evidence from the Bible itself I want to talk about shortly. 500 people, in the New Testament, it says 500 people claim to have seen Jesus at once. Do you guys know how, like, hallucinations and like dreams and things like that work? So when someone's hallucinating because they have a head injury, we'll say they're hallucinating because they had a head injury, okay? Not other reasons. How many people are having that exact same hallucination? Like, ever? Just one. If you're in a coma and you're like in this crazy big dream, how many real people are part of that dream? One. So how is it that 500 people claim to see Jesus risen from the dead? Because trust me, he died. That's a fact. That's written down in Roman history. Like, they killed Jesus. How can 500 people say that they saw him at once? Because thinking it's a hallucination doesn't work, and a dream doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah, he was there. Like, he was actually there. And then more than that, so many people in the New Testament who claim to see Jesus, 11 of the original, well, there were 14 apostles, but like all the apostles except for one, all of Jesus' closest followers were martyred. They were killed because they said that they believed Jesus rose from the dead and that he was God. Now imagine that. Imagine how good of a lie it would have to be for you to die for it. Like, ultimately, when it came down to it, I think it would say, no. Like, if it wasn't true, I think it would say, no, I was just kidding. Like, is it worth losing your life over? It's something they really believed. And I think that's good evidence that Jesus was who he said he was and that he rose from the dead. And it's on that we place our faith. So both science and theology, they both take a certain amount of faith. And when it comes down to it, honestly, you can present these arguments to people. You can look all this up. The book that I used primarily for my research is a book called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. Great book. Like it a lot. But you can present these arguments till you're blue in the face, and some of your friends still might not believe them. And that's fine. But it's our responsibility to know some of this stuff, to understand that science doesn't necessarily contradict God, because that's huge in our culture, right? Science disproves God. It doesn't. I quoted 2 sections of scripture today, and the rest was science. Like, science does not disprove God necessarily. And what does is usually just a theory. But the hard facts, the math behind it, show that there is a probability that God exists. And you can present these till you're blue in the face. Some of your friends might never understand. And to be honest, for a lot of my friends, for a lot of my family, it doesn't come down to the facts. It comes down to somewhere in the past, someone hurt them, and they associate that with the church. That's not everyone, but that's some people. And we have to know that. And we have to know that it's through understanding this stuff and showing them love, and that the church isn't just a place where people get hurt. That they can come to understand and know the God that loves them so much that he created them. You're not going to remember the theories I talked about today. You can look them up. You can look up scientific theories that prove God. You can read that book. What I want you guys to hear today is that science does not disprove God. I want us to think about that, but also I want to challenge us. As we go into our time of communion, I want us to think about one person in our life who we know maybe doesn't know this, who we know is like, science disproves God, that's the end of the story. And pray that God would challenge us to show them some of this, to talk them through it. Because it's so important. I'm going to pray. I want us to go into communion after that. God, I thank you for today. I thank you for the opportunity to just share about who you are, God, and that science, you created us, God, and absolute truth always points back to you. Father, I thank you for your love. I pray that you would put people in our path that we can have those hard conversations with, that we can love so that they can come to know you. God, we love you. We thank you. We praise you. It's in Christ's name that I pray. And everyone said, amen.